If you're not watching on YouTube, then you're probably not going to know, but we're having our very first video episode. And not just that, on today's episode, we're having a guest. Yes. For those who don't know me, my name is Stephanie Omonibo. Some people know me as Motari on social media, but I'm a digital marketer and consultant, and I help small business owners to market their businesses in the online space. Let's dive into the episode. Well, welcome to Motari Media. For the first time ever, 2 years of doing this, we have a guest on our podcast, and I just have to say, you're looking good.
Thank you so
You
much.
definitely look amazing. For our audience who might not know you, do you mind introducing yourself?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Marianne. I am a lover of people. I love people so much. I just want them to operate at their optimal selves. So with that, I guess I can segue and say I'm a life coach and also a career coach as well. So I help young professionals try and balance their personal and career goals as well. I'm a lover of books. I love reading books. In my spare time, you'll catch me reading a book or listening to a book or just doing routine work. I'm always plugged in. Well, I also have experience working in the pharmaceutical industry and medical device industry as a regulatory compliance professional. So I do, have a knack for attention to detail, creating and implementing strategy, that type of thing. Um, and yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah, a little. That's not little, that's a lot. And I mean, we're going to touch on a bunch of different things you've mentioned there. Today,
Okay.
we're specifically talking about balancing a 9 to 5 and running a business. So, in this case, I'm guessing you're still working in like the regulatory
Yep.
industry whilst
Yeah.
also running your life coach business. Is this full time or is it part time?
My life coaching business right now is part-time. Like you mentioned, yes, I do still have my 9 to 5. So during the day, I play compliance supervisor. And then when I'm off hours, then I play life coach. And because my business for me is a way for me to express my creativity and my
Yeah.
passions. And, I also have that experience and knowledge and passion for doing what I do as a 9 to 5. So and it also gives me stability that I need, and the structure for like day-to-day routine tasks. So right now I love both. So I'm going to continue to do both until I have to choose one, I guess.
I'm kind of the same way as well. I mean,
Mhm.
running Motari Media, because I also work, I don't even know that I'll call it full time at this point. It's like a very flexible, very flexible full time. Or I would
Mhm.
say I do Motari Media full time and then I work corporately part time, which I guess is like
Yeah.
the flip side of things, although it's in the same industry, right? But
Yeah.
anyways, we'll get into that. So
Okay.
I have a few questions myself about obviously being able to balance a 9 to 5 and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. And also, a few people had sent in questions on Instagram. Thank you, everyone,
Okay.
who sent in a question about this. So, we're looking to our life coach to give us some serious tips because I'm telling you, people out here are actually experiencing a lot of burnout,
Mhm.
a lot of exhaustion, and just really not knowing how to balance it. I wouldn't say we would be the first ones trying to do something like that. So I'm sure it's been done, and you definitely
Yeah.
have like some tips for us. But let's start here. Balancing your 9 to 5 and running a business part time or full time, is it possible? And is it possible to do it effectively and efficiently? Yes or no?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, like nothing is impossible, right? Everything can be done when you have the right systems in place. So running a business part-time or full-time and still having a 9 to 5 can work for you if you properly identify exactly what you want to get out of, your job. And when I say your job, I mean 9 to 5, and then what you want to get out of entrepreneurship as well. So for me, I don't see a reason why they can't coexist together. We've had people who have done this successfully, in the past. I mean, when I think about growing up, I had so many like aunties and uncles, like my mom, always having something, always doing something part-time or something, just to bring in extra income while still running a home, while still having a 9 to 5, you know. So it can definitely be done. It just depends on if you have the right systems in place and what your definition of success is.
Mm. Something you
Yeah.
mentioned right now actually takes me to my second question, and I just wanted to
Hmm.
get like a feel for your background of wanting to run a business. I feel like
Yeah.
a good number of people, I mean, it's kind of different today because everybody's sort of just dipping their hands into trying to
Hmm.
run a business. But I would say before now, like people who go into like that entrepreneurship life and world most likely grew up in homes where one of their parents was an entrepreneur, or they saw like aunties, like you mentioned, dive
Hmm.
into entrepreneurship. In Nigeria, well, let me not talk about me and maybe the experience that I had, but I kind of want to hear from you. Like,
Yeah.
did that have an influence on you deciding to run a business as well? Like, did any of your parents own any businesses? What's like your background
Hmm.
to entrepreneurship in general?
I wouldn't really say my parents influenced me when it comes to entrepreneurship, because they influenced me when it comes to my actual 9 to 5. So I have fond memories of them going to work, you know, leaving early in the morning and coming back like late at night. That's what I remember about them growing up. And then maybe my mom, once in a while, she might, do a business, but my dad, not so much. He was very 9 to 5. So when it came to mirroring that, like what I had seen growing up, I mirrored them when it comes to my 9 to 5 and how tenacious I am when it comes to pursuing my career goals, because I saw them do that. Then I saw some extended family do business, entrepreneurship. And to me, it was just like part of their life. Like I didn't even think about it like using the term entrepreneurship. I just said, well, this is what this person does, and they're okay with it. But for me, I always knew that I was going to have a business, just because I have that interest in it. However, I didn't know at this time in my life that I was going to actually launch my coaching business. The day that I launched the business, the day that I actually announced it on Instagram that, hey guys, I'm starting a business, I actually didn't know that that day was going to be my day one. I
Oh,
was
wow.
just exploring and going through the motions. And I'm okay. I shouldn't say that I did. I wasn't preparing myself to start a business. I did, because anything that I do, I want to do it well. So it all came up when I experienced a change in my life, right? And then a friend of mine asked me to, like, oh, why did you stop dreaming about your coaching and coaching people? Because I've always coached people. Like, it got to the point where my friends and family just call me when they experience changes in their life, and they're just like, okay, I need someone to brainstorm this thing with, and they just talk to me. So it's like I was on their speed dial when it came to complex situations that they needed to break down.
I'm curious about that.
Okay.
So is it since like your university days or like secondary school that people have just come to you for coaching?
I would say it since I was like 16.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I can distinctly
So
remember since
what
I've been
what brought about
16.
that wisdom? I know this is not part of my questions, but I'm genuinely curious. Like, because it
I
takes a lot of audacity to coach people in life. Life is
Yeah.
life is not easy,
I
right?
have no I have no idea where it came from. All I would
Ooh,
say,
do you
it's a
think it
talent.
comes from your reading books?
It could be. It
Hmm.
could be because, fun fact, I remember being 12, 13, and there are two books that I read, but my dad gave me to read. One of them is Our Iceberg is Melting, and the second one is Who Moved My Cheese. And I remember my dad gave me those books and said, oh, read this book, and when you're done, we'll discuss about it. And I read this, the self-development books. I read it, I loved it. And I discussed with my dad. And late last year, I was trying to remember those books again because it's a core memory from my childhood. And I went online and I looked at these book covers again, and it was like, and the description is, a crash course in change management. And so I messaged my dad. I'm like, why did you give me like MBA level books to read when I was 12 or 13? And she's like, well, I just wanted you to know how to handle change. Right. So I
Wow.
guess like from a young age, I was always reading those type of books, then discussing it with my dad and my mom. I would say my relationship with them is more of a friendship. So we could actually discuss and then agree to disagree type of thing. And I think that helped, inherently train my skills as a coach as well. And I also do like to think like being the first child, there's a component of leadership that comes with that as well,
Mm,
because you're always told, you know, you're the first, be an example for your young ones, and lead the charge basically.
yeah.
So I think that helped, but those things helped me grow into the coach that I am today. That means that the coaching was already in there. So I think for me, it's a talent that I was born with, and I know that it's something that I can't take back when all is said and done in this world. Like I have to use that talent to help people. So it was more about, okay, I always knew I was going to do this sometime in my life, with helping people. I just didn't know when I was going to start. So going back to my friend who reminded me of my dream and said, why did you stop dreaming? Maybe it's time for you to pick up that dream again. And shout out to her if she's listening to this. I really hope she's listening to this and she knows
Shout
that
out to you. Thank you. You're saving lives, basically.
and so I started thinking about it, and I said, okay, what is it going to take if I was actually going to start a business? And then I did my research, and then I also took a 3-month entrepreneurship boot camp as well. So once that was done, I'm like, okay, I think I have the necessary, like the basics to start. And I did that because integrity is one of my values, life values, and I didn't just want to start the business and just do it hazardly. Like I really wanted to do it well. So I did my research. So when I had all that done, like I said, the day that I decided, okay, I'm just going to put it out there, I just did. And I'm like, okay, the next day I'm going to do another, like I'm going to put out another thing and another thing and another thing. And then you network here and there and, register your business, things like that. And before you know it, you're actually operating a business. Here I am in my
Yeah.
20s doing it.
You said a lot of things I want to unpack.
Are
And
you the
I'm
coach? Are
running
you
through them in
are
my
you
head, and I'm
coaching
like,
me?
oh my god, I have questions that I need to ask about this particular topic. Let me start with the second one that's coming to mind, and that's
Yeah.
actually a fun fact, which is that you were like the very first client of Motari Media, and that was when I
I
was still doing things for
was.
free. So you took advantage of that. I remember like when you booked, and I was just like, oh my, I was so excited because I would say it validated what I was doing, but there's just that thing of, starting something new. And
Mhm.
although for you, like, yes, you were receiving a service, even though it was a free service,
Oh no, like
but
I still remember distinctly what we discussed that day. And
yeah,
sometimes, like with social media, I'm like, oh, I haven't posted online today. If Stephanie
yeah.
comes across my page, she's going to be like, oh, this girl, I thought we had a conversation.
And no, but you know what? I want to give you credit because honestly, like I think you're one of the people that I've spoken to that actually came very prepared. And it speaks to what you're saying about your value being integrity and not wanting to do things halfway or haphazardly. Because when you came, you actually knew what you were talking about. So
Thank you.
when most people are starting small businesses, they don't really have a clear picture of
Hmm.
what they want to do, or they might have like a mental picture, but they don't have the words. But you have the words, right? So even when I asked you about things like your target audience, so my job is helping to basically refine that and point you in the right direction, or instead of this, maybe try this instead. But it's always good when someone comes with a diamond in your rough, right? You come with the rough, and I help you bring out the
What
diamond,
the
basically,
diamonds, yeah.
right? So I help you with the refinement. So honestly, shout
Yeah.
out to you because you're
Thank
one of the
you.
clients that came, and you were actually very prepared. You made it very easy for me to do my job. And I'm always very impressed when I see your content out there as well. And I know that you're going to do
Thank
amazingly
you.
well. And then the second thing I wanted to point out before I go to my next question
Mm-hmm.
was what you said about I had the same experience when I was preparing for this podcast. I was thinking like, why did I get into entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
Like my dad as well is probably the reason I'm driven as I am, because
Mm-hmm.
Nigerian parents, if you're watching this and you don't know I'm Nigerian, she's Nigerian as well, right? But Nigerian parents, no shade to Gen Z generation, no shade at all. I'm a Gen Z, so I can say this, right? But they stayed at their jobs from when they finished university up until
Mm-hmm.
retirement. My dad just retired like 3 years ago, like, and I sometimes wonder how they were able to do the same thing for so long. And in our day and age, it's like, oh no, I want to try something new. I want to run this business, that business. You get a job, and I mean, obviously, you don't want to stay in a place where you're
Mm-hmm.
underpaid or whatever. So now we're fighting for our rights. That's one good thing, about Gen Zs. But I admire how driven like our parents were and are, and how they stayed committed to one thing for a very long time. And a lot of times, their motivation wasn't necessarily that it was their passion, but it was
Yeah.
because they had a family to feed. They're
Stability.
feeding
Yeah.
not just like their immediate families, but also like grandparents, uncles, aunties. So I found that very admirable. My mom, I was going to say my mom wasn't running a business, but she was actually running a business. And my mom would fly to Dubai and buy things, and I completely forgot about that.
It just seemed like everyday life to you, right?
Precisely. Like, and I always think about, because my dad didn't. My dad wasn't in the house, so he worked in NNPC, right? So he was always like in Lagos or Delta. They would always be transferring him from one place to another. So my dad wasn't like home a lot. But that painted the picture or the mindset of me, the mindset to me of someone who is like overly driven and trying to provide for his family, right? And my mom, she would be home, but she would travel like to Dubai or whatever to like buy stuff, and she would sell. And now, as I'm talking about it, I remember how we were actually selling ice cream. At a point, we're selling borehole water.
Anything that can be packaged and sold, you were
I'm,
selling it.
I actually, this is actually very interesting to me, because I completely forgot about it, that we used to sell ice cream like fan yogo. God, we actually sold these things. Anyways, that's amazing. But yeah, I just wanted to echo what you said about we saw examples of entrepreneurship, but we didn't
Mm-hmm.
call it that. It's now that, and I mean, we're young, so that's fair. But it's
Yeah.
now that that's like so much so ingrained in our minds. But what I just said about passion brings me to another question that I had. I don't think I mentioned this one to you, but is it
Mm-hmm.
possible to run a business without being passionate about it? I don't know. What do you think? Like, is it possible to run a business just because it can be profitable and it's the reigning thing, and being able to do so without being passionate about it, and being able to do so alongside a 9 to 5?
Yeah, it is very possible. Because when it comes to running a business, all a business is finding a product or service that people want, and you sell it to them. So with the age of social media, you go on YouTube, there's so many information out there. So for example, like if someone wanted to go into the Amazon FBA, business, there are tons of resources out there. All you might probably need to do is just replicate what is shared online, and it's just like you just plug and play your business, and then you focus on your 9 to 5, and all you have to do is just keep on making sure that the products are being restocked, right? So there are people who are doing it, who are just working. They run businesses that they are not passionate about. Now the difference is, to me personally, and this is my opinion, in my opinion, there's definitely a difference between someone who is running a business and is passionate about the business, and someone who is just running a business. Yes, the principles of math still apply. 1 plus 1 will always be equals to 2. But when it comes to the realm of business, there are certain variables that you can't account for, right? Those variables sometimes can take out the motivation from you to actually continue to run the business, or they may not fuel you to make the right decisions for your business, that would actually scale that business and help it grow. But for someone who is passionate about their business, they are thinking about, the longevity of the business, where they want to go with the business, how they can, make stretch $1 for the business to maximize their revenue and at the same time maximize their profit as well. When you're passionate about your business, it's almost like you are the life blood behind the business, and it gives it the je ne sais quoi, that thing that, someone can't describe. They just know that there's something about your business that is different from, another person that's doing the same thing, just because of how passionate you are. And passion then tends to show up in different ways, right? So it could be like, if you're passionate, your marketing budget is probably going to be 10 times more than someone who isn't passionate. And then your once your marketing budget increases, your marketing resources increase. It's probably going to bring in, more sales and convert more leads into clients and things like that, right? So there's always the difference
So do
in
you
there.
say that someone who's really passionate about their business takes more risk than someone who isn't?
No, no, I wouldn't say so. It could happen either way, because you could be very passionate about your business, but if you don't have the right business acumen to run that business, you can passionately run it into the ground, because you because you don't want to let go and take risks.
Yes.
So if you are passionate about your business, but you are very low risk, low returns, higher risk, possibly higher
Possibly
returns,
higher returns,
right?
yeah.
Possibly higher returns, but that's when you have to determine, okay, is this what is best for my business and things like that,
Yeah.
right? So it's almost like, it makes me think about the story, the tortoise and the hare. So it depends, maybe like someone might run faster, someone might go slower. At the end of the day, we get to the finish line. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of when.
So let's actually get into the main thing, which is how to actually balance your 9 to 5 with running a business, whether that is full time or part
Mhm.
time. When I asked this question on my Instagram, spoke about how for service based business, which is kind of what you do, right? You're not a
Yeah.
product based business, but for a service
Hmm.
based business, it's a bit difficult because your business depends on you, right? For
Hmm.
example, like although I sell digital products, but I have to be present for my business because it means like podcasts, it means creating content, it means having one-on-one appointments, it means actually putting people's strategy together. So
Yeah.
it's different if I have products in a store and maybe I just need to ship it on the weekend. And I've done that before, right? That was a different kind of business. But if perhaps you can speak to both, like balancing your 9 to 5 full time job with full time product based. That's if you think there's a difference, right? With
Mhm.
full time running a product based business and full time running a service based business, and maybe since that's what you do, you can start from there.
Before I even give the tips, first thing I would mention is, nobody is perfect. There's no perfect situation. When it comes to business, if you think you figured it out, the next day you would learn that you haven't actually cracked the code. So every day you are learning when it comes to business, right? So the first thing I would say is, first of all, give yourself grace. If you feel like you aren't balancing your 9 to 5 and your business well, just give yourself grace. Remind yourself that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's okay to pause and take stock of where you are, and then re-strategize and implement that new strategy. It's very okay. It's actually better for you to do that rather than, you run out and then you burn out fast. You run fast and then you burn out faster. So practical tips, like I mentioned earlier, you have to have systems in place, to be able to balance both your 9 to 5 and entrepreneurship. And at the same time, you also need to have time management. Time management is very key. And another tip I would share is delegation. Is this something that you can do by yourself, or is this something that you need help with? Is the help going to be free, or is it going to be paid? Those are things that you actually have to think about when it comes to, running a business and balancing your career, your 9 to 5, with entrepreneurship. So and this is actually what I work with clients to try to figure out, because it's a pain point for most people, like millennials, Gen Z, you know, all the generations out there. Everyone has experienced this. So I like to use the idea framework to help create the systems that you need in place. So the idea framework stands for identify, design, execute, and audit. 4 steps, very simple, and you can repeat these 4 steps whenever you need to. So the first step, which is identify, you have to identify what your goal is. You have to identify what you want to achieve. So you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this business? Why am I, launching this business? Who am I helping? Who is my target audience? You need to identify those things. Then once you've identified that, you move to the next phase of the framework, which is design. It's time for you to design a plan. So then you're going to ask yourself, okay, my target audience, if I'm a service-based business, is my target audience available during the day when I'm working my 9 to 5, or can they be available in the evenings after my 9 to 5? For someone like me, working with young professionals, we are all at work 9 to 5. So evenings and weekends are my prime hours when it comes to interacting with my clients. So that works for me. So for someone else, you have to identify what works for you. And if it's a product-based business, 24 hours, 365, 7 days a week, your target market is out there, right? So in designing a plan, you have to identify, when is your target audience available? How can you possibly engage them? What do you need to do to engage your target audience or your target market? How can you implement what you've identified to actually meet your goal? So that's what designing a plan is. So your plan is your design is actually coming up with the vehicle for your system. So like the skeleton of your system. So then this is when you determine, okay, do you have set hours when you're working during the week, and set hours when you're not going to work on your business? Do you have days specifically set for content creation? Do you need to hire like a social media editor, or a content or a content creator and things like that? Do you need to, reduce the number of days you post in a week? Maybe cut it down from like 5 to 3. What about marketing? That's what comes into design. You really have to think about it from the perspective of your target audience and the target market, right? And once you've designed your plan based on what you've identified, the next step is to actually execute your plan. So now that you've done that research and you've come up with your strategy, now you're going to implement it. And so once you have that, it's going to be easy for you to say, okay, I've told myself I'm only going to post 3 times a week. My posting days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that means Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to be in the lab cooking the content, right? That's an example of someone maybe doing a service-based business, or even a product-based business can do as well. And then once you execute it, the last step is to audit your plan. So you don't just execute and just wash your hands clean and say, okay, this is going to work. Because every day the variables in the business are changing. The variables in the business landscape, your target market, your target audience are changing. So you have to change with the times as well. So you need to audit your plan and ask yourself, okay, what is it still working? What do I need to change to ensure that my clients or my target market are getting the best from me? And then if you identify a change, you tweak your plan, right? So your plan is yours. And don't feel bad if you are not meeting your plan. Like for me, I'm sharing all these tips, but I'm human as well. So I experience it. I experience it the same way any other person will experience it. I beat myself harder than someone else would, share negative feedback with me, right? So just give yourself time and give yourself grace. I'm going to use an investing metaphor. Time is very important when it comes to compounding. Time is a variable that is going to be the difference between whether you're successful or not, depending on how well you implement your systems. So once you have your systems in place, it's also going to help you inform your time management. So do you need to block out time during the week to actually focus on your business, right? And if you choose to then delegate certain tasks to others, paid or free, you would need to also set like accountability checks, so meetings, um, as part of your system to ensure that your collaboration with them is actually meeting the goals that you set for your business. So, in a nutshell, time management, develop systems, and delegate.
This is good